Welcome back to the Prometheus Podcast. My name is Luke and I'm joined as always with Ali and Hendry. So gents, I was thinking about something that we've always covered, but we've never really dived into it. I think it's pretty crucial. So we've all mentioned once, twice, 5 times even about how back in high school, maybe not towards the end of high school, maybe even early days in high school, we've had, each of us different as well, mind you, but had a kind of image of ourselves that was more towards a negative side than a positive side. So we've had more of a negative self-image, whether it's how we were, what we thought of ourselves, how we acted, how others saw us, or anything like that. It's all kind of different between all of us. But I wouldn't mind us diving into, well, what did you think of yourself? When did you think of yourself kind of either as a negative person or kind of a negative person for other people to be around as well? And what was it, one trigger? Was it multiple triggers that kind of shifted it towards, hang on, I'm not too bad of a guy. I'm actually not, I'm a pretty good guy actually. And I want to try and keep focusing on to positive stuff because we'll understand how energy attracts and everything. So the more you are being optimistic, being positive, the more positive forces you do attract. So when was a trigger? When did it switch, and what did you think about yourselves originally, and kind of where are you now with yourself and how you are with your well-being and your mindset?
Well, I myself, I think what really got me caught up and prevented me from growing in a positive way for a long time during high school was I cared too much what other people thought, because my whole self-image was based on what other people thought of me. I didn't really care what I thought of me. I cared about what everyone else thought of me. And since I was so caught up in that, I kind of became invisible to myself, if that makes sense. I knew that other people had eyes on me, but I didn't have eyes on myself. And that meant that over time, I was slipping up in certain areas of my life. I wasn't being as structured or disciplined as I should have been. I let my mental health kind of escape me a bit. I let my physical well-being, I gained a lot of weight. That all snowballed away from me. And I think that's because rather than actually seeing myself for who I was and who I needed to become, I was focused on what other people thought of me and who they would like. And since they thought, or I felt quite invisible during that time in my life, I thought, well, if I'm invisible to other people, then that means no one can see what's happening here. But then I was the one who had to live with the consequences. So I think for me that was a huge one, just overcoming the fact that rather than caring so much about that outward opinion, actually developing an inward opinion that was positive as well.
That's interesting. I had it pretty similar to you, but mine came from like family and all that. They would always tell me that like I'm super skinny, I don't eat enough, and it's like it just like got to me, and it makes you like self-conscious about yourself, right? I think the switch for me came when I realized that it's my own body. Like my self-reflection on myself is the only opinion that shouldn't matter instead of what others matter. And that came really around the year 9, year 10-ish, when I was like, well, this is who I am, and only I can improve myself.
What did, because we just talked about something similar. So how did you get out of that? Like, so how did you actually look inward a lot more and then start accepting yourself and going, well, look, I don't like these parts about myself, but let's actually start trying to change that. Let's like get on the offense. What can I do to actually improve myself and better myself?
So for me, I think it was just the consequences started to stack up, and I realized that these people whose opinions I value so much, they're not the ones suffering, it's me. So like they don't suffer when my life falls apart, but I'm living my life for them. So I think there's like
sooner or later have to give.
There's a disconnect there, like something doesn't add up. So I thought, well, if it doesn't really matter in the end, and if this is all superficial in that sense, and especially in high school, a lot of it is superficial. It's much more surface than substance. So I hit that rock bottom point where I thought, well, if I'm at rock bottom and no one else is fazed by this, like no one even cares that I'm at rock bottom right now, and everyone else is fine living their lives, everyone else is happy, well, then I need to create that for myself, and I can't rely on getting that from other people. I have to create self-love, self-appreciation, and self-respect for myself, rather than finding respect from other people before I even have that inside of me.
Yep. No, that's good, because you have to find self-acceptance within yourself. Because if you're always chasing other people's values, like you said, it catches up to you. And we spoke about this briefly before, how I was saying how we should only value our opinion on ourselves and not let the outside voices get to our heads. And the moment we do, it becomes harmful for us personally.
Yeah, we can pretty much just Photoshop you in that last conversation. Exactly what you've just said. It was exactly what we were talking about.
Cool.
I love it. Yeah, something similar with that. For me, it was it was more of, well, the same story, I guess. It's kind of other people's opinions, right? But mostly it was more my opinion on myself, and just kind of how I would do things and how I would act and kind of the reactions I would get from other people. I think a big one for me was, it's the same story, it's that self-acceptance. I was like, well, and I briefly mentioned it once, but I always leaned into some like negative traits of mine. So it was finding that balance, and I will never stop saying it, and I can never stop saying it enough. A lot of people are toxic because they think that they're all sweet and are on like a certain end of the spectrum, right? And they think that they're the best person ever, and no matter who they hurt or what they do, they think they're all sweet and there's no consequence. Like they're just so caught up into their own mind. So I was very conscious of what other people were thinking or feeling. Whether I showed it or not, I guess was irrelevant to me. But a lot of people think that they're all sweet, so I was just more on that negative side, thinking, well, everything that I did had such a destructive aura around it. So I found just a middle ground on going, well, what I do on this side, which might be seen in a negative light, that's not all bad, and that's okay. And you actually did a post about it recently, Ali, where you were saying how you don't just neglect like your negative emotions, like they're there, they're not going away as well, and there's like purpose and power even in that. It's just, but a lot of people shut that off and just think, no, I'm just like out of sight, out of mind. Everything I do needs to be good, and there is no consequences. So again, finding that middle ground and being like actually accepting on, hang on, I'm like this for certain reasons, and those reasons aren't necessarily bad. And I might be direct, say for an example, I might just prefer the cold hard truth and just like pull the band-aid off and then suffer at the start, whereas suffering later, I'd rather just feel the burn at the start and then kind of move forward. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. And sure, moderation in anything, you can't just like abuse one thing, but it was just accepting the kind of those traits and then going, look, it's not all bad, let's find that middle ground, accept the bad parts, and then sure, there's great parts, and then find that balance. But that was my kind of take to it all.
And it is important that not neglecting the negative side of things, because I think so many issues that people do have with their own self-image, or even the way they view other people as well, it's they lean too far into the positive side of things, and the negative side we tend to just see it as just baggage that it makes us look ugly, or makes us look like bad people, or makes us not the version of who we should be for other people. But I think, as you're saying, like if you kind of run into the storm at the start and orientate yourself and learn from that experience, and then begin growing in a way that, with the knowledge that you have, that's a lot more powerful and empowering than just trying to figure out which direction you want to go in without actually facing your demons first, and actually looking yourself in the mirror properly and looking at your self-image and seeing, well, who exactly am I?
And I like that, running into the storm, because like again, so many people just tuck it away. So many people just put the lock on it and go, I'm gonna just look this way and live my life like that. And sure, that's cute at the start, and you might be fine for 5-10 years, but to take your word, sooner or later those demons will come out. And you'll find it more often than not, it will come out in the worst timing possible, and you'll be lashing out at someone like you care about, or doing something like that, or you're botching something at work or doing something like that. But sooner or later, those negative emotions, those negative feelings, those negative self-image that you do have about yourself that you hide, it will explode and cause more destruction than if you were to run into the storm at the very start and say, look, I'm just human. I'm not the greatest person, I'm not the worst person there, I'm somewhere in the middle, and as long as you accept that, then you can start going, well, cool, let's try to be a bit better then, because that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
Well, the moment you kind of like what you guys are saying, then you neglect it, like it feeds off that. The negative feeds off the neglection because it grows. And you know, we all have things that we don't like about ourselves, but self-love is like super important. You know, like you were saying, we're all kind of, this is who we are, and we shouldn't shy away from that, even though it might not kind of like be the best on our minds, but like what Ali was saying, we should tackle it.
So was when you started kind of noticing it and trying to take action on it, is there any stories, or what was the process kind of like for you two, and me included, but I'd like to hear your opinions first so then I can navigate.
Well, for me personally, I was like, well, my weight has always been a problem for me. I've always been super skinny, but I was like, what can I do? How can I improve? I stopped asking myself that it's like, oh, I'm just stuck like this and all that. But it's like, what can I do now? And so started eating more, but then I like put on too much, and I was like, well, I got to be careful of what I intake into my body. And then I started going to the gym, and that was probably like my action from what my problem was, and what I didn't like about myself. But I think you kind of have to think back and reflect on what can you do really to kind of improve, instead of like saying, oh, like this is who I am.
Definitely.
Having that kind of defeatist mentality where you just accept the cards given to you instead of taking the proactive approach where you're shuffling the deck a bit and going, all right, well, what do I have at hand with who I am, and what do I need to get to where I want to be? And I think that's just something that, again, so many people just love to just throw their hands up and say, it is who I am. It's, my demons are my demons, and I am in this certain environment, position, this perspective that I have, and this is it, and this is all I can do for myself. But how about yourself, Ali? When was
I think for me it always just centered around confidence. And that self respect, really, because I think for the longest time I just had no confidence in life. Like and you've known me like since I was like 6 years old. You've known me for a while, so, and I'm sure you remember the scrawny little brown kid I was, that I just didn't. I was very much in my shell, and I couldn't get out of that. And I think a lot of that was just not having much self-respect for who I was. I didn't really think I was cool. I didn't think I was popular. I didn't think I was that funny, or I had that good of a personality. I didn't think that I had much to offer people. And of course, that's a lot of negativity for someone that is young to hold. But you know, you get used to a certain narrative, and that's what becomes who you are, right? So I carried that even long after we'd lost touch, even into like my final years of high school. I just kept that inside me. I thought, I'm a loser. I'm a nobody. No one cares about me, so they must be right, because I must have nothing to offer. And it took a long time to finally get that self-respect and to know my own value. You know, that's such an important thing, just knowing what you're worth. Because if you think you're worth $2, someone's going to come in your life and offer you $3, and you'll be like, wow, that you are
you're like my savior.
And whereas that person's offering you $3 that's just spare change for them. And you know, in reality, you're probably worth 300 or 3,000 or 3 million. But since you value yourself at $2, someone's going to come into your life, offer you $250, and you'd be like, I'll take the deal. That's better than I thought. So I think I think that pattern in my life has just been on repeat. It's just me thinking I'm 5 cents and someone offering me 10, and I'm me going, wow, like,
I'll take it.
Sounds good to me. But now I think I'm finally in a place in my life that I know what I'm worth, and I know my value, and that's not arrogance, that's not ego, that's just knowing that I'm a good person, and I'm a good friend, and I'm a good influence in people's lives, and I know that, and I know that's the truth. So I'd rather own who I am than being sad about thinking I'm someone I'm not.
That's super important because honestly, like you were saying, like if you think you're worth little, then when someone offers you, you know, like get all excited and all. But it's interesting because we judge ourselves a lot based on what others think of us, and I think it's because of this day and age with social media and all that, but also the way society works in general. Anyways, during high school, people are always kind of like, oh, I'm better than you and all that. So kind of and if you already don't have that higher self-esteem of yourself, it kind of gets to your head and it builds up. But what Ali was saying was super key. It's like the moment you accept yourself and the moment you value yourself higher, no one else can really kind of tackle you down.
Social media plays a huge role in that value system because I just spoke about it in terms of dollars. Let's talk about it in terms of likes or anything like that. It's you think you're worth 1 like, you get 10 likes, and that's like wow, that's great. And then your life becomes social media because that becomes your system of validation. Your validation isn't coming from within, and that's when your self-image becomes distorted and something that's not in your control. And if your self-image isn't in your control, you will be forever a slave to the opinions and the thoughts and the views of other people in your life, as opposed to who you are.
Yeah, there's I can't even remember what song is it. A line from one of my favorite rappers says it, and it's like you see yourself through the eyes of people that hate you, and he has a pretty cool verse with it. But I can't even remember. It's so true. It's exactly what you're saying. If you base your entire existence and your worth, again, $3, if you just think you are $3 and that's what every single person is telling you, it's because you're looking at yourself through their eyes. And if you do that, then you are going to be worth $3. But is there something that, so how is it, I guess, we'll talk about how we are then today. So how, is it a growing journey, or you're at peace with kind of who you are? How does that all kind of stand in like today, like right now, where we are sitting here on these stools? Is it like, do you think like if someone is struggling with it now and they're just like, oh well, I get what you're saying and all that, is it a light switch, or is it more of a journey type approach? And how do you feel right now and where you want to kind of go as well?
I say it's a mixture of both, really. It's a journey to get to a place where you're really accepting of yourself, but it's also a light switch of when you take that step to that journey. For me personally, at this current point, I'm good. I don't care what other people think of me these days anymore. I know my self-worth. I know I accept myself, and if others are kind of talking stuff about me, then I don't really care because they're wasting their time talking about me. So that's kind of my take on it, really.
And for me, I think it's just a process of going through enough experiences in life and going through enough growth to actually understand what dollar value to assign yourself, if you want to speak of it in those terms. And I think it's hard, and it's easy to talk about, and it's hard to actually be that person who's trying to figure out what am I worth, what is my value. And I think that a lot of that comes through lived experience, through the way you interact with people, I think most of us can get a sense pretty quickly if you just be reflective about it and think, well, do people actually like me? Do people actually take value from my presence? Am I actually a net positive in someone's life, or am I actually a destructive influence? And I think once am I a +1? Am I a 0? Am I a -1? Where do I sit on that spectrum? And then from there, through your life experiences, you can finesse that and actually truly come to understand. Of course, it's a lifelong mission. You won't truly know ever, but I think the older you get, the more experiences you have, the more joy and pain and all these things you feel, the more friendships that come and go. I think all these things inform you and kind of paint in your picture a little bit more clearly. You kind of starts off in 180p slowly gets into 4K and then keeps going, and then maybe in another 10 years you'll have this beautiful 8K crispy image of exactly who you are and what you're worth. And I think that's something to look forward to in life. I don't think you should see it as this bad thing that I don't know who I am or what I'm worth. I think you should see life as, great, I don't know what I'm worth now, but the next 5 years have a lot in store for me, and let's do this. Let's just dive in and figure it out.
Thanks for tuning in to the Prometheus Podcast, where we aim to bring the fire back to the people.